Order. Sergeant Arms, please secure the doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, this afternoon we are pleased to have Pastor Nathaniel Yates, Bethany Community Church from Laurel, Maryland, guest of the Distinguished Senator from District 21. Members, please rise for the invocation.
Our gracious God, I thank you for the grace that you have shown toward us, guiding us and directing us and keeping us in times of uncertainty. Today, I pray for direction for our representatives. Guide them as they seek to carry out the duties of their offices. Guide them as they seek to serve the needs of the people. Give them the courage to do what is right in your sight, even in challenging times. Give them the strength and a heart toward unity, even in divisive times. Align their words, hearts, and decisions in a manner that may be beneficial to meeting the needs of the state, strengthening the communities, protecting all of our people, and ensuring stability and equality. Lift them when they feel weary, encourage them when they feel faint, so that the path that we should follow may be clear and realized. Grant them wisdom and let the decisions from this body drive us toward a better tomorrow for all Marylanders. Almighty God, hear our prayer. Amen.
All right, Chair recognizes the Senator from the 21st District.
Thank you very much. Pastor Yates is new to the Bethany Community Church. He's actually the second pastor. He was founded about 20 years ago, and his predecessor is now a bigger cheese in the denomination. And Pastor Yates has come in and carried on the tradition and built on it and really kept the words, the spirit of the name of the church, community, in it. Move that his prayer be journalized.
Without objection, we certainly will journalize the Reverend's excellent remarks this afternoon to get us started on this crossover day. All right, members, has everybody recorded their presence in the chamber? It appears to be the case. If so, the clerk will take the call.
Mr. President.
With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. There's a lot of energy in the chamber. Everyone got some rest, it appears, this weekend. Got a little bit of downtime. Crossover day. We got a big day today, but because of because of the hard work that happened last week, we did a bunch of double sessions. We are actually in a pretty good spot. Our calendar is looking pretty reasonable. We got some big things today, but we're in a pretty good spot overall. So, just wanted to give the crossover update on bill assignments. So, to give kind of a breakout of where the various committees were through crossover. So, this year we had a total of 971 bills, 971, compared to last year we had 1,081. So less, a little bit, 110 less. So our most recent rule around the 25 bill limit, it appears to have had a marginal impact. When we look at that 971 and break those out, you've got 141 in budget and tax, trail in the pack, but they have the budget, of course. We've got in third place, finance with 232 bills assigned, followed closely behind in second place with JPR with 243 bills assigned, and then leading the pack, as always, with an overwhelming number of bills is Education, Health, Environmental Affairs with 333, so about 90 more than the next closest. So thank you, members of Education, Health, Environmental Affairs. You all have been doing yeoman's work. Of the bills reported out, We have roughly, well, this breakout isn't so great. This talks about the total, so not necessarily the overall. Of the 33 of the 333 were kind of local liquor bills. So even let's be generous and say 300, still about 57 more than any other committee. And so, when you start to think about this, in each bill, let's say it takes 5 minutes, multiply those out. Obviously, not all bills take your lowest number of bills just to call it up, get somebody to testify, a favorable, an opponent. This is it's a significant amount of time. So we are moving along well. There's the totals. I'm sorry. So Education, Health, Environmental Affairs has had 36% of the total bills. We've got JPR with 25%, Finance with 23%, and B&T with 14%. So, B&T's work product will be coming to the floor today. So they have 2 bills that take up the vast majority of time. But certainly there is quite a yeoman share being handled by Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs at the moment. Oh, great. Okay. All right. Any other announcements? Before we jump into the work today? So the House was in. They were a little bit less efficient than the Senate, so they were in on Saturday. And so we have a number of calendars to be presented today. If we're ready to go, if there are no other announcements. All right. Schedule. Let's just kind of generally look at schedule today. Right now we are tentatively. We'll see how today goes and level of debate. But I would benchmark probably we'll be done by close to 2:00. I would imagine. So that's a little bit earlier than we had thought. We thought we'd go until 3, but I think with the calendar that we've got today, I think we can probably get out by 2. So then committees, I know a number of committees are doing various either bill hearings or work groups or voting sessions. And then we will plan to, we've got the vaccine at 4, vaccine oversight at 4, we've got the executive nominations at 5, and then we will come back on the floor at 7. Seeing how today goes and whether any more second readers come out, we probably won't have too terribly long this evening. We may have to adjourn and do another legislative day if we have second readers that have to get through over to third. But for the most part, I think we're going to be okay today. It's not going to be we did a lot of the work last week, so we're in a pretty decent spot. Okay, so with that, off we go. Without objection, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. First order of business, a message from the House. This is calendar 19. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 45, Delegate Forbes, Education, Baltimore County Public Library, Collective Bargaining, Finance.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Calendar 20. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 190, Delegate Learman, Procurement, Specialized Printing Services Contracts, Board of Public Works, Approval.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. On to calendar 21. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 83, Delegate Queen, Public and Non-Public Schools, Electric, Retractable Room Partitions, Review and Report.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Final calendar is calendar 22.
House Bill 44, Delegate Frazier Hidalgo, Clean Air Act of 2021, B&T.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. That takes care of their work from Saturday. We are now going to jump into second readers, and we'll get through these as fast as we can. Let's see, let's do the policy bills first, and then we'll do the budget afterwards, if that's okay with the chair. We'll do calendar number 18. Calendar 18, the clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 133, Senator Rosapep, Local Tax Relief for Working Families Act of 2021, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill proposed by a number of the county executives and the mayor of Baltimore to allow counties to take their local income tax and make it progressive. The counties had this authority about 20 years ago, and at one point when we changed the tax code, we set a flat rate system for the local income tax. As you know, our state income tax is progressive. This simply would allow the counties to set their own progressivity rates. As introduced, it would allow them to take a top rate from 3.2 up to 3.5. One amendment takes that out. The other amendment deals with the disparity grants, because Over the years, we've created this disparity grant program for those local governments which are showing tax effort, but because their tax base is limited, are not able to raise as much money to support their schools primarily, but also other public services. And so we worked with MACO on an amendment which changes how the relationship between the disparity grant and the income tax at the local level works to protect the disparity grants. So I move the amendments and the favorable report, Mr. President.
Floor Leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Thank you. If the floor leader would yield for a question.
The floor
Please.
leader yields. Senator may proceed.
So I'm looking at the title, and that really looks good. It says local tax,
I thought you'd
tax
like it.
relief. So you almost got me on that one. Then I started reading the bill. Can you show me in the bill where there's any guarantee of a tax relief?
No, this is totally gives the option to the local governments to reduce taxes on folks. This is not mandatory. This is totally up to the local governments, giving them flexibility to have a more progressive tax system and lower the tax burden on working people.
Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't see anything in here that provided tax relief. It was a potential for tax relief.
Yes.
It's also a potential for tax increase. It's up to the locals what they want to do.
Up to the locals.
So I think it's a little misleading on the title. It's either local tax relief or local tax increase for working families. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on the amendments, any further discussion on the amendments? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say, oh, yes,
Can I have a roll call on
on
something?
the report? Sure. On the roll call, everybody, any further discussion on the report? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, the favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Thank you. I have an amendment.
Senator has an amendment. If the
And I-
senator could read the amendment number, please.
Yes, it's SB 0133/723426/1.
723426. Ah, we're already ready. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you. And I just got this. I did send it over to the floor leader. I didn't realize this was going to be the first bill of the day. So what this basically does is it says it'll make it net neutral as far as the revenues. So if they raised taxes on the higher income people in their county, then they will lower it on the lower income. After all, this is a tax relief. So we want to ensure that because there's nothing in this bill that says they're going to lower taxes. And if that's the intent of what this bill is doing, we need this amendment to ensure that they will get tax relief. We've had tax after tax increase come up here this session, amazing. During a pandemic, we had the $250 million over the beginning of the session with the vetoes. We had another one in my county where they were enabling transfer taxes. And some of the county executives came in and they said, yes, we're planning on raising taxes on those higher incomes, but we're not going to promise any tax decrease on the lower income. And that's the way this is being proposed, that they're going to get a tax relief. So if we want to ensure that, all this amendment says is that if you want to raise it on higher incomes, you can do that, but make sure the lower incomes get the benefit of that, and it's neutral revenue. So I would move this amendment. Thank you.
Senator moves the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Yeah, thank you. I rise in opposition to the amendment. This is intended to give the counties the flexibility to design their tax systems the way they want to. There are different situations in different communities. We should keep the flexibility with the counties. I urge a red vote on the amendment.
All right. Any further discussion on the amendment from any senators who have not yet spoken wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Thank you. As it was mentioned earlier in the discussion on this bill, this is enabling. And it was stated that we should let the counties do what they want to do. But if you look at the title, it says, it's not saying let the counties do what they want. It's saying this is a local tax relief. And we need to stop enabling our locals to keep increasing our taxes. This amendment will make sure that doesn't happen, especially on the working class. So if we're serious about providing tax relief to our working families, we need to put this in this bill. If we just want to raise taxes or allow them to raise taxes, then we don't need this amendment. Thank you. And I'd like a roll call, please.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion of the bill? Any senators who have not yet spoken wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Yeah, just very briefly, I want to be clear. So this bill would not allow a county to go above the 3.2 limit that's in current law. So the issue would be changing the balance between folks in different income groups. That's why it's about tax relief for working people. It would not allow a county to go above the 3.2 cap that's in current law.
All right. Any senators who wish to speak who have not yet spoken? If not, Chair recognizes the maker of the amendment.
Thank you. I'll be brief on this. Just so everybody knows, not every county is at 3.2. For example, my county, Anne Arundel County, is not at 3.2, so they can increase the taxes. So I just want to clarify. Thank you.
Fair point. All right. Any further discussion on the amendment? If roll call. Senators request a roll call vote. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 28 votes in the negative, the senator's amendment fails. I'm sorry. Apologies. Senator from District 5.
No, I actually wanted to see if I could ask a question. I don't have an amendment, but I did want to ask one question to the floor leader about the bill.
We don't have anything before us, but why don't we grant the privilege? I missed it before the floor leader would.
I was reading the bill and
Sure.
found something intriguing. If I could just ask a question.
Sure, Senator.
What was the rationale for making the floor so much higher? Because it looks to me like in the reprint, we used to have a floor of 1%, which it seems unlikely most counties would be that low, but 1%. Now we've gone up more than doubled it. So
It doesn't increase the floor overall, as I understand it. It's related to counties that have different levels, and that's dealing with the disparity grant. So you're dealing with different counties with different levels to make sure the disparity grant treats all the counties fairly. That was worked out with
So
MACO.
it doesn't say that a county can't go below a certain, we didn't raise the amount they could go below?
Current law does, but my understanding is that would not change that provision in this bill.
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
My understanding is, let me check with the chairman if he's got some different information, but those minimums are related to the disparity grant, because the disparity grant is set up in such a way that it affects different counties differently. And so the disparity grant is related to different.
Brings in line with the lowest county rate.
What that does is it brings it in line with the lowest county rate. It wouldn't raise anybody's rate.
Okay.
Thank
you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Any further amendments to the bill or its title? If not, yes, Chair recognizes the Chair of the committee.
I don't know if you want me to wait till the end of the calendar.
Yep, go. We can do it now.
Okay. I have to change my vote on that from green to red on the amendment.
Senator.
But it gives me a chance to just point out something on your amendment, is that that those individuals, those counties that are at lower rates, like your county is right now, they could have always changed that already. It has nothing to do with this bill. They could have made those decisions beforehand.
Right. Okay. All right. On the. All right. Well, before let's deal with the motion to change the vote from red to green or green to red. If there are any objections, without objection, so ordered. Point of privilege, personal privilege for the minority leader.
Thank you, and I appreciate the BNT's observation on that. But I would counter that currently we have a 1% bottom. This bill sets the bracket that it has to go up to 2.25 now. So they won't be able to give somebody 1%. So they might be able to say 0, but they raised the floor on the working class. So that's part of the problem I saw with the bill.
All right. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 133 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 370, Senator Peters, Income Tax Subtraction Modification, Military and Public Safety, Retirement Income.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had this bill last year. It was unanimous. This is the bill that takes all our public safety personnel and our military personnel and moves them up from 15,000 to 20,000 for tax modification. It also clears up the problem with some of our firefighters where they are getting penalized for getting Social Security and a pension. That will not be deducted in the bill. That look forward to a favorable report. We have one amendment, which is co-sponsors.
All right, thank you. Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendment. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 370 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 909, Senator Smith, Capital Projects, Minority Business Enterprise Goals, favorable with two amendments.
Chair recognizes Chair of the Capital Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I worked with the sponsor on this bill, and basically we set a level of $3 million for capital projects to consider using not just MBEs, but Maryland MBEs located in the jurisdiction. It also adds a report of practicability of the goals depending upon the structure of the capital project. So the First Amendment adds sponsors, and the second basically puts the $3 million in for consideration. Thank you, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, Senator from District 5, was that a leftover? Okay. On the amendments, any discussion on the amendments? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 909 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, Senators, we are now going to do the budget coming out. This will be the second reader report. And given our COVID restrictions, we'll ask the chairman to do it from his desk this year as opposed to generally coming up. This will be the overview. So if the clerk could read the bill.
House Bill 588, the Speaker, Budget Bill, Fiscal Year 2022, favorable with 73 amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee has completed its review of the state operating budget for fiscal 2022. Today we report our version of House Bill 588, the Budget Bill, and House Bill 589, the Budget Reconciliation and Finance Act. Both of these bills are needed to ensure balanced budgets in fiscal 21 and 22. Mr. President, before I briefly discuss the details of the Budget and Taxation Committee's budget plan, I'd first like to take a moment to thank the members of the committee and our staff. Despite the unusual environment we have been operating in, I've been thoroughly impressed with the unwavering hard work and dedication shown by everyone involved in this process. Each session, our committee has to take action to ensure that we have a balanced budget and that we meet the recommended goals of the Spending Affordability Committee. This year, in recognition of the uncertain and ever-changing circumstances we find ourselves in, the committee recommended that we do our best to maintain cash reserves, be mindful of the impact that our current spending may have on our fiscal future. Of course, we always do that. You know, I've mentioned many times before about how budgeting really cannot be looked at in an individual year. We have to, in the sense of passing a budget, do it in an individual year, But if we fail to recognize what has happened before us and fail to recognize what is in front of us, we don't do ourselves or Marylanders the best that we can. The other aspect of budgeting that I think has become really, I mean, it always has been, but even more so in this year, is the sense of One Maryland. Our committee has worked very hard to keep that in mind every day, and we've tried to look at all jurisdictions across the state to do our very best as we move forward. Mr. President, I'm pleased to note that the budget before you, we were able to provide support to the individuals, businesses, and communities that need it, while still maintaining fiscal responsibility for our state. This constitutionally balanced budget commits $51 billion in resources, yet preserves $1.8 million in cash to protect against future unknown needs. It provides us with an outlook that presents enough general fund balance to erase the projected deficit through fiscal 24. And it also creates structural surplus that grows to $262 million over the next 5 years. But it is in the spending details where this budget will make the difference in the lives of Marylanders. And the budget before you provides nearly $1.3 billion in funding for resources to respond to and help us recover from the COVID pandemic. It maintains our commitments to providing health care and services to most of our most vulnerable populations and to the providers who support them. It restores and allocates funding for our education system to ensure that our public schools and institutions are on a path to improvement established by our enactment of the blueprint legislation. In order to achieve these goals and meet our spending priorities, this budget relies on additional federal support. But we are maximizing those federal resources responsibly by investing in one-time capital infrastructure costs, replenishing our savings accounts, and committing additional funds to our unfunded liabilities. This budget responds to our current needs while keeping us on a fiscally sound path moving forward. Mr. President, let me turn to the materials which have been provided for each member. First, the materials relating to the budget bill. First, the report of the Budget and Taxation Committee explains each amendment to the budget. Amendments are numbered in the report and in the committee reprint of the bill. The report includes reductions, budget bill language, and committee narrative listed by state agency. Keep in mind that the committee narrative items are not amendments to this bill and are not subject to floor action. However, if you have concerns with narrative items, please bring them to the attention of the committee. The committee reprint of the budget bill reflects the committee's amendments to the budget. Amendments in the budget bill are numbered and correspond to the explanations in the committee report. Keep in mind that amendments to the budget are to be drawn to the committee reprint. Both the report and the budget bill reflect the actions of the House, actions that are struck through represent items where we did not agree with the House. New actions adopted by our committee are shown in italics. The summary document is included in your packet that contains exhibits and charts relative to both the budget bill and the BRFA. Next, you have the committee reprint of the BRFA. The committee amendments in the BRFA reprint are numbered with corresponding explanations at the end of your summary document. To facilitate the drafting of the amendments to House Bill 589, I will move to suspend the Rule 52 in order to allow the committee reprint of the BRFA to be considered as an official bill for the purposes of preparation and consideration of floor amendments, consistent with how amendments are drafted to the operating budget. All amendments to House Bill 589 should be drafted to the committee reprint. Amendment office staff are available to assist you. I would ask that if the members have amendments to the budget bill or BRFA, The committee would appreciate that the opportunity to review those amendments ahead of time to determine what effect they might have on the balanced budget package we have to put forward. The analysis of the Maryland executive budget prepared by the Department of Legislative Services is available to you on your laptops through the floor system. The analysis describes the significant budgetary changes in all agencies and provides an overview of the budget as submitted. Mr. President, I move that House Bill 588 and the committee amendments lay over under the rules until the appropriate hour tomorrow, at which time I'll ask that they be special ordered until the appropriate time on Wednesday, March 24th.
All right, just so that everybody's clear, so we're on the budget itself. Chairman has moved to lay the bill and the amendment over under the rule. That would take it up into this evening session. At that point, the chairman, tomorrow? Okay, that'll be tomorrow, at which point it'll come up again, and we will special order it a day later so that we will have debate on second reader for the budget on Wednesday. Any questions about the senator's motion? Any discussion on it's not a debatable motion. So because the senator's motion is in order, the bill and the amendment will lay over under the rule. The clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 589, the Speaker, Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act of 2021, favorable with 11 amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Mr. President, I move that House Bill 589 and the committee amendment lay over under the rules until the appropriate hour tomorrow, at which time I will ask that they be special ordered to the appropriate time on Wednesday, March 24th.
So again, the senators move to lay the bill over under the rule. The senator's motion is in order, so the bill and the amendment will be laid over under the rule. Again, just a reminder, any amendments, discussions, any issues on the BRFA or the budget, please make sure to reach out to members of the committee, the chairperson, so that we can have some educated debate, should there be some, on Wednesday. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend Rule 52 in order to allow the committee reprint of House Bill 589 to be considered an official bill for purposes of the preparation and consideration of floor amendments.
All right, the question before the body is on Rule 52, the substitution of the committee reprint for the bill for consideration and the purposes of amendments. Any discussion on the senator's request on the two under Rule 52? If there are no objections to the senator's motion, the motion is adopted. Rule 52 will allow us to use the reprint and substitute for the official bill for the purposes of debate. All right. Well, we want to thank the Budget and Taxation Committee. I know this has been a crazy session with a lot of dollars flying one way or the other, with federal dollars, trying to balance a lot of uncertainty with the COVID crisis. But just we are very, very thankful for their work. We are ahead of schedule, and just want to thank them for what they've done so far, with more left to come. So we appreciate all the hard work that's gone into it, and we'll debate in full on Wednesday. All right. Excellent. We just received another message from the House. These are first reading House bills. Let's go ahead and clear those out. This is Calendar 23.
House Bill 23, Delegate Stein, Personal Information State and Local Agency, Restrictions on Access, Maryland Driver Privacy Act, JPR.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Let's now go into judicial proceedings. This is start with Calendar 21. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 360, Senator Rosapep, State Government, Notaries Public, Notary Public Fund, and Remote Notary Acts.
Chair recognizes
Favorable.
Senator from Baltimore County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill establishes the Notary Public Fund, a special fund administered by the Secretary of State for the purpose of providing funding to support the implementation, regulation, administration, and enforcement of the laws governing notaries public. The fund may only be used to cover the expenses of the Secretary of State in carrying out its responsibilities with respect to notaries public. The bill takes effect this coming July 1st. The committee vote was unanimous. There are no committee amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Discussion on the report. If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 360 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 420, Senator Carter, criminal law, drug paraphernalia for administration, decriminalization, favorable with 2 amendments.
That's sort of funny. Your chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill makes several changes to statutory provisions related to controlled paraphernalia and alters penalties for offenses involving controlled paraphernalia and drug paraphernalia. There are 2 committee amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 retains a provision of current law prohibiting a person from delivering or selling or manufacturing or possessing with intent to deliver or sell drug paraphernalia under certain circumstances. I would move the adoption, the 2 committee amendments and adoption of the favorable committee report. Thank you.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, chair recognizes the senator from District 5.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wonder if the floor leader would yield for a question.
Will the floor leader yield? Appear so. Senator may proceed.
Thank you. So I'm looking at this bill, and I remember that we several years ago did something dealing with marijuana paraphernalia because the state had decriminalized marijuana. So this is not dealing with that, correct? Is this dealing with like paraphernalia for heroin and cocaine?
It could be. It's dealing with paraphernalia used in many illicit drugs that are still illegal in Maryland law, particularly syringes. Was a big part of the impetus for the bill because the organizations that are legally authorized by statute to distribute syringes, and many of whom work with Baltimore Harm Reduction Coalition, indicated that this bill will be very helpful to them in distributing these syringes and keeping people safe.
So we're talking about needles, correct? We're also talking about things like pipes, things of that nature? Yes,
could be.
You'd mentioned that these drugs are still illegal in Maryland. Yes, they're very much illegal. I'm just curious, why is the implication that, and I'm not familiar with the sentencing here, but is someone going to jail for an equal amount of time for paraphernalia as they are for possessing heroin?
In some cases, yes. So the public defenders testified that the statutes are actually inconsistent, and there are some situations where a person could actually face more time for paraphernalia than the underlying CDS. But I'll tell you that beyond that, any concern about a person facing time for drugs, this has nothing to do with the actual CDS. This is all about the paraphernalia used to administer the CDS.
Is there any, and I apologize because I hadn't had a chance to really look at the bill closely, but is there any provision for someone who's possessing perhaps a large amount of this kind of paraphernalia? So obviously I understand just somebody who's using may have, a couple needles or may have some kind of, so if somebody has a large amount of this, is that different, or is this bill also decriminalize having a large amount?
It's different. It decriminalizes only, it's targeting users that would have paraphernalia maybe on their person. We specifically took out language that would possibly include, scales, for example, that might be used to weigh large amounts of drugs, and we also took out language to do with sale and distribution.
We've done a lot. We've done a lot in the state over the past several years, and I've supported quite a lot of what I'm about to say, which is that we've tried to decriminalize. We've tried to make sure that, not decriminalize, but we've tried to be sure that people can get, we don't use incarceration as a tool to beat a drug addiction. If someone has a drug problem that we find and the crime that they're committing is associated with that drug habit, there are options to get into rehabilitation and that kind of thing first. Why is that not cover someone who's been caught with drug paraphernalia? Because in my view, that, to me, someone gets caught with drug paraphernalia, particularly like some needles or a pipe or the kind of things you use to heat up the different drugs. To me, that would be like, hey, that's a warning sign to a family member or to their friends or to law enforcement. This is a person with a serious problem. So why would they don't go to jail for getting caught with one time with drug needles, right? I mean, that's That's not happening, is it? There's not, in general, someone's not on their first offense going to jail for this kind of thing, correct?
Well, it's unusual for someone to be sentenced to time in jail under the current law, but they are arrested and booked and held, and sometimes, held on some type of bond or some other condition. So I just want to share that a lot of why we felt this was an important bill, and a lot of the testimony was around treating this addiction as public safety, public health, as opposed to criminalizing the behavior. And it's really just another tool forward in our effort to treat this crisis as a public health crisis. And so one of the things I felt was most compelling about why this matters is there was testimony from a retired law enforcement officer who talked about how because this is still criminalized, officers sometimes don't know how to handle it. And people that are using, that have these things on their person, such as needles, are not inclined to admit it when they're stopped or patted down or searched. And so it actually puts officers at risk for patting down and possibly being stuck with an infectious needle. They also talked about the fact that because very few people actually serve time for this, it really doesn't make a lot of public policy sense for them to be arrested for just being in possession. And because they can be arrested for being in possession, lots of times they're throwing them all over our public spaces and our neighborhoods to make sure they're not on their person so that the police can't arrest them for it. So there were a lot of good reasons why we should move in this direction to decriminalize the paraphernalia.
Well, a lot of reasons, and I understand some of them, but by decriminalizing it, what is the I can't say punishment, but what is the consequence when someone is caught with this kind of paraphernalia now? See, again, with marijuana we had decriminalized, but we haven't decriminalized heroin or crack or cocaine or any number of other types of drugs that might need paraphernalia. So what's the alternative if someone's caught with this paraphernalia? How do we make sure we get them help? Because I agree with you, it is absolutely a public health crisis first.
So they're still subject to a civil fine, but I just want to, so one of the things that we did some years ago, people may remember, is we passed the Good Samaritan law, which when, in the case of overdose, when someone is accompanying someone that has an overdose, they can now feel free to call the authorities to get help for that person without having to worry about being arrested. Mm-hmm. But what was testified to by Public Defender's Office, for example, was that they've got clients who, while they are not arrested for the drugs, they are still arrested for the paraphernalia, which really defies the whole spirit and intent of the law that we passed before. So it's really just another step in the direction, again, of decriminalizing addictive behavior. It doesn't decriminalize the drugs, just the paraphernalia. The low level, I'd say low level, relatively low level paraphernalia.
I agree it's another step in decriminalizing drugs. I'm not sure that's a policy we're ready to take at this state, and I don't think we should. Just one last question, Mr. President. I appreciate the indulgence. Is there a must appear? And I apologize because I was reading through it, but is there a must appear for the civil fine, or is it just a fine? Because I remember when we did marijuana, we put a must appear, so we said it's going to be a civil fine now.
I don't believe there is a must appear for a first offense. And I'm not certain if there's a must appear for the other civil fines, but I'll just say that if a civil fine isn't paid, then it eventually results in some level of accountability for not paying it or showing up at court.
It may be that we did the must appear for smoking marijuana in public. That might have been what the must appear that I'm remembering. Mr. President, I'd like to ask that this bill and the amendments lie over under the rule.
The Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendments will be laid over under the rule. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 535, Senator King, Condominiums and Homeowners Association, meeting requirements, favorable.
Senator from Baltimore City County? Or Baltimore City. Senator from Baltimore City on Senate Bill 535 recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. So Senate Bill 535, just one moment.
Take your time, Senator.
I want to say court's indulgence, but I'm ready, Mr. President.
Excellent. Senator may proceed.
So, Senate Bill 535 establishes procedures by which a homeowners association may call an additional meeting of the board of directors or other governing body if the number of lot owners present in person or by proxy at a meeting is insufficient to constitute a quorum. There are no committee amendments. The bill passed unanimously. I would move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 535 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 587, Senator Signor, Facial Recognition Privacy Protection Act, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill establishes the Task Force on Facial Recognition Privacy Protection. The task force will study the current and planned use of facial recognition technology by state and local government agencies, review the capabilities of facial recognition technology, review potential regulatory improvements to protect privacy, review legislation and literature on facial recognition technology, make recommendations to set guardrails on the use of facial recognition technology, and report to the General Assembly and to the Governor. There were 2 amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the bill as introduced and establishes this task force. The committee vote was unanimous. Mr. President, I move the adoption of the amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 587 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 607, Senator Jackson, Criminal Law, Harm to Service Animals, favorable with 3 amendments.
Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, as amended, the bill prohibits a person from willfully and maliciously killing or injuring a service animal as specified. A violation is a misdemeanor, punishable by imprisonment for up to 2 years and or $2,500 fine. Violators may also be required to pay full restitution for all damages arising out of the offense. There were 3 amendments. First is technical. Second exempts certain activities from the prohibition. Third amendment alters and strikes provisions of the prohibition and alters the penalty for violations. I ask for adoption of the amendments and a favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 607 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 631, Senator Kagan, Public Safety Statewide 311 Non-Emergency Telephone System, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill establishes a work group to study and implement a statewide 311 non-emergency telephone system. There are 2 committee amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the bill and establishes the work group. Mr. President, I move the amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 631 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 750, Charles County Senators, Charles County Community Service and Pre-Release Programs Authorization, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as amended, this bill authorizes the Charles County Board of County Commissioners to establish and provide for the administration of 1, a community service program in the county, and 2, a pretrial release program in the county. As specified, a court may order a person to participate in the community service program or a pretrial release program. There are 2 amendments. The first is technical. The second strikes provisions of the bill authorizing the Board of County Commissioners to enact a local law establishing eligibility requirements for a pretrial release program and setting eligibility requirements for such a program. The amendment also authorizes the Board of County Commissioners to enter into an agreement authorizing the sheriff to inform staff of a pretrial release program of a violation of the program's rules. Move the amendments and adopt the favorable committee report. This is a local bill that passed out unanimously at both levels.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 750 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, JPR has got another 1 bill calendar. This is calendar 22. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 105, Senator Signor, Peace Orders, Workplace Violence, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, I'm sorry. Senate Bill 105, this bill as amended authorizes an employer to file a petition for peace order that alleges the commission of specified acts against petitioner's employee at an employee's workplace. The employer must notify the employee before filing for the peace order. It extends most existing statutory provisions relating to the filing, issuance, and modification of peace orders, as well as the shielding of related court orders to peace orders filed by employers on this basis. An employer may not retaliate against an employee who does not provide information for or testify at a peace order proceeding. There are 2 amendments. 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 specifies the bill may not be interpreted to create or impose a duty on an employer to file a petition for peace order on behalf of the employee, and it strikes an immunity the bill created for employers. The vote was unanimous. And Mr. President, I would like to move the adoption of the amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 105 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, we have a special order calendar. This is calendar number 33. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 536, Senator King, Montgomery County, Stormwater Charges, Organizations Offering Agriculture Exhibitions.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor. Oh.
Floor leader.
The chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
You want to do it?
Chair of the committee.
Yes. Mr. President, members of the Senate, apparently a new chapter is to be written in the Montgomery County Stormwater Fairground saga. Given that situation, we would move that the bill be recommitted to committee.
Senator has moved to recommit the bill. Are there any objections to the senator's motion? If not, the senator's motion is adopted. The bill will be recommitted back to committee. All right, let's do a quorum call before third reading calendar.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their presence? right. The clerk will take the call. With 47 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. We have Calendar 47, a third reading bills. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 35, Senator Feldman, procurement, prevailing wage applicability.
Senate Bill 35 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 35, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 78, Senator Wallstreicher, Maryland Institute for Emergency Medical Services Systems, administration of ketamine data collection.
Senate Bill 78 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 78, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 201, Senator Patterson, criminal procedure, expungement of records.
Senate Bill 201 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 201, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 202, Senator Kelly, correctional services, parole, life imprisonment.
Senate Bill 202 is on third reader for final passage. Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I think it's important that we take the time on this one to make sure we know what we're voting for. Seems like there was a lot of confusion on this bill and exactly what it means. Has to do with, on its face, removing the governor from the decisions on parole. Under the current law, which if you took the bill and look on page 2, currently it says that an individual convicted before October of 2021 is not eligible for parole until they've served 15 years or the equivalent of 15 years. We all know that the equivalent of 15 years could be as little as 11 and a half years. Of course, that didn't really happen because you couldn't make parole you can't make parole under the current law unless the governor approves it. So we have a check and balance there that while the law does permit that, the governor stands as the gatekeeper. And fortunately, we've not had in place governors who would go too far in reducing those sentences. But nevertheless, we're pulling the governor out with this bill. So now it goes to as little as 11 and a half years. It could actually be less because we're looking at a bill coming up on the voting list that grants even more diminishing credits for educational times and the like. So, but ignoring that, it's 11 and a half years. So that's what we would be approving. We'd be approving telling folks that first-degree murder, you can make parole after 11 and a half years. The check on that would then be it's up to the Parole Commission. So that's an appointed body, and they're bureaucrats. They're not subject to the voters' discretion. They would be able to tell us whether you could make parole at 11 and a half years or 15 and a half or 20 and a half. But it would not be up to this body. It would not be up to the governor. And I think that what we have to look at is for the people currently in there and the people who will be in there for murders committed up through October of this year, is it right for us to say that they could make parole after 11 and a half years? What happens at that point? Well, you start becoming, you can get your parole hearings, and families have to come in and justify why an individual should not be released. But it's definitely out of it leaves our realm. And we don't know who's going to be commanding the Parole Commission in the next 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. But it certainly defies logic to me as a public policy that this body would say that based upon our laws that this body passed, that a first-degree murder could net you 11 and a half years. The second half of the bill talks about people who haven't yet committed a crime. Those people are going to be sentenced for murders that they commit after October of 2021. So those people, if we talk about just them, they would, under this bill, we're talking October of 2031, 2032, now they come under this bill. And that's the part that talks about whether you would have to serve 20 years. So at some point, those folks would become relevant under this bill. But for now, for our purposes today and for the next decade, the only portion of this bill that's really relevant is the part I just quoted to you, which makes a first-degree murderer eligible for parole after only 11 and a half years. I proposed a very simple fix on that, which was to simply leave the current system in place through until those folks currently in there had served 20 years of time. This body rejected that. I want to be clear that that's totally constitutional, and no one, the folks saying, well, maybe that's not constitutional, nobody asked for the Attorney General's opinion, but certainly all it does is leave in place the current system, which is constitutional. So if it's constitutional today, it'll be constitutional tomorrow. Continues that until they've served 20. I hope you'll join me in voting red on this bill. As violent crime continues to rise in this state, especially in our urban centers, but throughout the country, I think the wrong message to send. I mean, we just had even the mayor of Baltimore talking about the epidemic of violent crime. The wrong message for this body to send at this time in our history, the wrong message to send is, we've just reduced the time. We made a public policy statement. We pulled the governor out, and we're standing behind 11 and a half years. I think that's incredibly poor message to send as a public policy to the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the floor leader, senator from Baltimore City, followed by the senator from District 5.
Thank you so much. Members of the body, we've debated this quite a bit on second reader, but I think it's important to once again clear up the misinformation that we're hearing. Under current law, in some cases, a person could possibly come up for parole in 15 years. That's current law. That is not the bill. The bill actually increases that time and to 20 years with no diminution credits. Now, as far as what the senator is speaking about, coming up for parole now and under current law with the 15 years, the governor has actually not had to be the check on someone getting released under parole in 15 years because the Parole Commission has not recommended parole for people at that stage. This bill is really designed to address people that have been sentenced to life with the possibility of parole, but governors have stood in the way of that being able to be realized. And these are people that have come up for parole hearings come up for parole 3, 4, 5 times and been denied, and then eventually been recommended for parole by the commission, and the governor has still said no. And so briefly, I want to talk a little bit about what this process is once we remove the governor, because it's still an extremely extensive process that the Parole Commission has to go through before someone could be eligible for release. So after 15 years, or in most cases longer, because most people that are serving those kinds of sentences are serving sentences that have consecutive time, usually for associated crimes. But anyway, at the very minimum of that 15 years, a person would come up for a parole hearing. There would be 2 commissioners, and they'd do one of 3 things. They'd deny it, they'd say, not now, come back in any time between 2 and 7 years, or they'd say, okay, we recommend you for a risk assessment. I've talked about before, but these risk assessments, because the state's only had one person conducting them for a long time, take anywhere from a minimum of 12 months to often 24 months, which is 2 whole years from the time that they've been recommended to have a risk assessment. Once that risk assessment is done, there's a hearing commissioner review. Once that is done, if they move to the next level, they have a full en banc hearing with the whole parole commission. And then before a decision could be made to release that person on parole, they would then have to have a full majority of the appointed commissioners. I reiterate that there's been no issue of governors turning down people that the Parole Commission recommended in 15 years because it simply hasn't happened. The Parole Commission is not some liberal body out there just trying to set everyone free. In fact, the parole commission is appointed by the governors, and the current ones, all 10 members, I believe, are appointed by the current governor. They are absolutely not in the business of recommending people for parole that don't deserve parole, people who haven't demonstrated, 1, remorse, 2, that they've taken every step possible to be rehabilitated within the institution, that they've had no infractions. They've got to seriously show that they are changed, that they are remorseful, and that they are being so productive that it would be to the benefit of society to have them out. And that's a very, very, very tough hurdle for someone that's been convicted of murder. And so I just think for purpose of clarity, this bill does not allow someone to get released in less time. It simply says the governor doesn't have the final decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 5.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been a breathtaking session in a number of ways. As it relates to law and order and criminal justice, this bill's taken the governor out of parole decisions. This bill would put us among the most lenient in the country when you account for all the factors, including the 20 years we've been talking about and some of the other factors. This bill would make us among the most lenient in the country. Common sense amendments were rejected. They would have ensured that crimes against the most vulnerable among us, like children, would receive the justice that is demanded and deserved. This bill follows a pattern, sadly, of the current General Assembly, focusing like a laser on watering down what in our state is already a pretty lenient system of justice in some places. Life without parole for extremely heinous crimes for minors is now gone. And again, in that debate, common sense amendments to protect the most vulnerable among us and to ensure justice were rejected. And this is occurring while some in the General Assembly are simultaneously scapegoating law enforcement personnel that we ask to deal with the most difficult criminal and interpersonal situations that we can imagine in our state, scapegoating them for problems that we see in communities. There is a reasonable discussion to be had about the role of the governor in parole here in this state. There's a reasonable discussion to be had. We've acknowledged it ourselves. There's a reasonable discussion, just as there's a reasonable discussion to be had on police reform, which I do think we had in this body. But the role of the governor in parole cannot be viewed in a vacuum. And I firmly believe that we need balance in criminal justice. And right now, what I see and the perception I believe publicly is that the scale is being weighted dramatically towards the offenders and away from public safety and victims. So I would ask the body to join me in voting no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any senators who have not yet spoken? Chair recognizes the minority whip.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I think my colleagues on the side of the aisle have said it very well, but I'll just reiterate. These are individuals with life sentences. These are first-degree murder, first-degree rape. These are the most heinous crimes. And this does fundamentally change the process because it removes the governor. Right now, it goes to the parole board, then the governor. So by removing the governor, you're removing a backstop, allowing someone easier to be released from prison. And it's important to note, as my colleagues have said, 54 of those individuals now are eligible at 11 and a half years, and the governor's removed, so there is no backstop there. And furthermore, the current law requires for people that were charged under the death penalty as we had before, life without parole, go to 25 years. That would be reduced to 20. So it does lessen the amount of time also in addition to removing the governor. And I just want to read into the record, if I can, a case from, sorry, Mr. President, it's a little loud in here.
Yes, Senator, you're right. Senators, please give your attention to the speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, because I want to read this into the record because So many times we hear from advocacy groups and proponents of bills and people that are lobbying on behalf of them. But unfortunately, what we don't hear, and especially as of last couple of years, we hear less and less from them, are the victims groups. And the victims themselves, in this case, they are voiceless because they're deceased. But their families, we do hear from time to time, but not as much as the advocacy group. So one of the state's attorney shared with me just one of these cases, and I want to read the victim impact statement. It's not long. It has taken me some time to sit down and write how my life has changed forever. On September 8, 2006, my husband Eric was shot and killed in our bedroom where he was sleeping. Why someone took his life, I have no answer. Eric had no children of his own, but had 4 children I had 4 children who he took care of until his life was taken. Eric was there to watch 2 of my grandchildren being born, and one I was holding in my arms when Eric was killed. I was holding my 7-month-old granddaughter. Eric was the most important person in the world to me, and I'll never have him to know more. We also have 9 other grandchildren he will never get to see grow up, and they will miss their Poppy very much. My 5-year-old grandson was the closest to Eric, and he doesn't understand why bad people, as he puts it, shot his Poppy. He tells us he sees Eric, so how do you tell a 5-year-old why his Poppy went to heaven? Eric was the kind of person that would do anything for anyone. He never said no to anyone. He worked very hard to take care of us. He didn't do drugs. He did drink a little beer after work, and he stayed home. He told me we would grow old together, but that will not happen. I didn't ever imagine that I would be alone in a widow and try to do without my husband. My relationship with my family is not like it was, and my kids and I don't get to talk or enjoy things as much anymore. So I just want to read that to understand what we're talking about. There's another side of the coin. When we talk about the people that, giving these people a second chance and everything else, there's another side of the coin of people who've been impacted. Not only those who lost their lives from first-degree murder, which is what we're talking about, but the families who are dealing with it. And I think it's very important. And then lastly, I'll just say, when we pass this and we remove the governor from parole, 54 individuals will become eligible with nothing more than a vote of 6 on the parole board after 11 and a half years to walk out of prison. Almost no other state, I read for you when we started off, is as lenient as Maryland will be. So for these reasons, I'll be voting red. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee. Chair recognizes, are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the senator from District 34.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just like to respond to the suggestion, well, it was more than a suggestion, that I'm trying to mislead you. If there's anything that's misleading, it's this bill. It throws out the structure of it clearly would lead one to be confused about the purpose and where this bill is going. It was stated that, hey, it's 15 years and I'm misleading you. Actually, no, I'm not misleading you. It's 15 years minus dim credits. Dim credits aren't a matter of administrative law. They're under the statute. You're entitled to diminution credits, and so it bumps you back 11 and a half years. So let's just start right there. It was said that I was misleading you on the 15. No, I'm not. It's 11 and a half. That's the time that you kick in with diminution credits. That was the unrebutted testimony at the hearings on this. No one rebutted that. It is 11 and a half years. You can pretend it's 15, but it's 11 and a half. So let's move on from that one. Then we say what the law did was it put right up here, the big bold language says 20 years. But we know the big bold language is irrelevant because that doesn't become applicable till 2032 at the earliest, 2033. So let's just forget that because now we have about a decade and a half to worry about what the heck that means anyway because nobody's going to matter under that for a long time. Let's get back to what the bill really does. And what the bill really does is say it's our policy that it's 11 and a half years. And we're told, hey, wink, wink, nod, nod, that's just sort of funny and don't be silly because this parole commission, this unelected parole commission, they won't let you out because the people who are on there today, People are on there today, right? Well, does anybody think that commissions don't change, boards and commissions don't change rather rapidly? They do. They do all the time. And to suggest that, oh, well, we don't have to be responsible for setting the public policy because we can punt to a commission, an appointed commission, and that somehow they'll set the right public policy is absurd. It's just absurd. This bill says it's 11 and a half years. It would, and what we're saying is that that's okay. Because if we don't mean that's okay, then why wouldn't we increase that? And that's what I asked the advocates. I said, okay, well, what do you think is appropriate? 12 and a half, 13 and a half, 15, 25, 20? Let's just put that in the bill. No, we don't want to put that in the bill. Why? Because we want to leave it to the discretion of the Parole Commission. Why? Because. Why do you think? Because they're not accountable to the public. Because they'll set that now public policy will be set by an unelected an unelected commission. Unelected commission should not be setting public policy. That's our job. What we're doing here, we're pulling the governor out. It's no longer his policy. We're pretending there's still a policy in there, and it's not. There's no policy in here that keeps anybody in, no public policy that keeps them in for more than 11 and a half years. We're punting to it. We're punting that decision. To me, if anything is misleading, if there's anything misleading about this bill, it's that fact. It's the fact that we're pretending. We're going to pretend that it's 20, but we all know intellectually, we just said 11 and a half. That's misleading. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I first want to thank the senator from Frederick for reading into the record the perspective of the victims, because it's the most important consideration and something that we should always keep our eye on and our mind on. I also want to commend the floor leader for her most capable and able explanation of the merits of the bill. But I want to just take a moment to read into the record the words of a former governor, Governor Glenn Denning, who published an op-ed in the Washington Post, and I think his perspective and his words here will be most instructive for the debate. I'll just read a little excerpt and I won't belabor the point. I now understand why almost all states put these decisions in the capable hands of parole boards. Today, Maryland is one of only 3 states in the country to have a parole commission that still involves the governor in deciding to release someone with a parole-eligible sentence. When I was first elected, I did not know this. If I were to give nonpartisan advice to those governors today, I would emphasize that they do not want to be in this position. It is a certain opportunity for political controversy. How can it not be political for a governor to hold all the power in the decision about whether to release someone who has been involved in a serious crime? On a lesser point, it is just not good use of a governor's time or a governor's staff, whose most important charge is to run the state. Governors are not experts in how to make decisions about who has earned parole. Currently, they make those decisions based on brief file prepared by staff. How can any governor meaningfully assess whether the person worked sufficiently hard to improve themselves and pay their debt to society? In contrast, the parole commissioners, who are appointed by governors, meet candidates. They extensively review detailed records, medical and psychological assessments, speak directly with victims and family members, and are experienced in assessing whether a person is suitable for release. Today, the board is comprised of 8 appointees from the current governor and 2 from former. This bill ensures that justice will be served and that proper evaluation will be rendered for all those candidates. So for those reasons, I'll be supporting this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, the question before the body, Senate Bill 202 on third reading for final passage. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 202, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Mr. President.
Whoops. Oh, I'm sorry. Sponsor of the bill. Explain your vote.
Thank you. No, Mr. President.
Oh.
May I have permission to use the senator's name?
Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a moment to commend the long work of Senator Dolores Kelly in trying to get that bill passed. We've been more than a decade on this. Prior to Senator Dolores Kelly's tenacity on this issue, the great work of wrongly convicted Walter Lomax, who served 39 years, who was the first person who brought this to our attention. On behalf of him, I'm very proud of what we just did. I believe it was a moral imperative. I also want to recognize the great work prior to Senator Dolores Kelly of former Senator Nathaniel McFadden and Delegate Tyrone Tiger Davis, all who championed this bill for many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, for that reflection. Thank you very much. And we thank the chairman for her fierce advocacy. All right, clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 268, Senator Bailey.
Senator,
I'm
Madam
sorry,
Clerk,
Senate Bill 205, Senator Heddleman, alcoholic beverages, sale or delivery for off-premises consumption.
Senate Bill 205 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not,
Mr. President.
Try it again. Oh, yes, Senator from 36th District.
Would the floor leader yield for a question, please?
Will the floor leader yield? Senator may proceed.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I understand when this will end.
It sunsets in June 30th, 2023.
So regardless of when the governor's executive order ends, this will carry out until that date?
Correct.
And that's correct. Okay. In the bill, it spoke about the bars and restaurants, but then there was also something that related to the package stores. Is that accurate? Are they able to make deliveries as well under this?
I don't believe the package stores are in this one. Maybe you can reference a line.
Yeah, it was two different sections of
Well,
this.
there was two different, because one was on-premise and off-premise, and one was off-premise. It's the same concept, but they had to deal with the two different type of licenses.
So is off-premise, that's not a package store? What is off-premise?
So what you have is some restaurants could have off-premise sales, and it's limited. This actually expands that so they can do the cocktails. Under current law, they can't do that, so this just mirrors what the executive order did.
Okay, and then finally, there seems to be some provisions that must be in place in order for somebody to be able to walk out with, let's say, a mixed drink that has been prepared at the restaurant. It has to have a cap with no holes for straws. Just trying to think, what does that look like? Or let me ask the other question. The cap that you would see at like I said, a fast food restaurant that has a perforation for a straw, is that not allowed, or is that allowed? And then maybe another question, for instance, the cap that you would put on your coffee that has a perforation that you could peel back, is that allowed or not allowed under this?
I think there's two provisions. One is carry out, and then there's
Right.
one for delivery. So the one for carry out is sealed or closed containers. That's also for consumption and delivery. So you're asking for a straw?
It says, I'm trying to find it again. It says very specifically, I'm sorry. I thought I saw it somewhere. I thought it said it could not have an opening for a straw.
They can't have.
So that's what I was saying. If the perforation is there, does that count, or is that not necessarily an opening yet, so therefore that's allowed?
You hear the question? The perforation.
No holes for straws or sipping. Page 3.
Yes, that's what I'm
Mr.
looking
President?
at. Right.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee.
I can help
Yes.
my friend from Kent County if you like.
Will the floor leader yield?
Sure.
Page 3 of 4, Senator.
Yep.
Lines 6 through 8. Provided in the manufacturer's original sealed container or in a container closed with a cap, cork, seal, or lid with no holes for straws or sipping. So that's the language that's in there, if that's what you were looking
Right.
for.
So my question is that the kind of cap that you would see on a soft drink at a Chick-fil-A, for instance, that has the perforation that's there for the straw. It's not open, but the perforation is there. Is that?
Yeah. Legal counsel is saying you could not do that.
Okay. All right, that's my question. All right, thank you very much.
All right. Any further discussion on the bill? Further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take up the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 205, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 268, Senator Bailey, sexual abuse of a minor, crime of violence, and lifetime supervision.
Senate Bill 268 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 268, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 397, Senator Carter, Correctional Services, Diminution Credits, Education.
Senate Bill 397 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 397, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 445, Senator West, Vehicle Equipment, Safety Glass, Replacement Standards.
Senate Bill 445 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 445, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 483, Senator Hedelman, Solid Waste Management, Organics Recycling, and Waste Diversion, Food Residuals.
Senate Bill 483 is on third reader for final passage. Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore and Hartford counties.
Thank you. Will the floor leader yield for a quick question?
Floor leader yield. Appear so. Senator may proceed.
Yes.
Thank you. Reading on this bill, I understand what it's doing. I appreciate it. I just saw the penalty phase, and I read on page 5 about animal use. I just want to make sure that there are some places like grocery stores, they get rid of their old produce to farms. I myself use a cider farm, gives me all their old apples that they don't use. I know, the Walmart meat truck goes to places. I just want to make sure that this isn't prohibiting that.
No, in fact, one of your colleagues, one of our committee members, brought up that very point. And this only happened after those uses take place. So after use for farm, for animal feed, for helping people, homeless or other folks who use some of this food, it's only after, there are about 5, there's a list of about 4 or 5 items, including that one. So it doesn't happen until afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further discussion on the bill? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 483, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 608, Senator Jackson, Public Safety, Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission.
Senate Bill 608, third reader, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 608, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 625, Senator Carter, Courts, Jury Service, Disqualification.
Senate Bill 625 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick question for the floor leader, if I could.
Will the floor leader yield? Appears so. Senator may proceed.
We went back and forth on this one in committee, and there was sort of, a lot of handwriting and stuff. I just want to clarify. We say in the bill that you couldn't serve on jury duty, while you're on probation. But the bill also says that you couldn't serve on jury duty until you finished a sentence, completing a sentence. So is your understanding that if you're on parole, that you haven't completed your sentence and therefore you're not eligible to serve on jury duty? Is that where we are with this?
Yes, I believe the 3 restrictions are you're still serving the sentence, so you're on parole or probation, and you have a pending case.
And the only reason I ask is we said in the bill, when it finally came out, this thing was a drafting thing back and forth, but what it ultimately says is probation. It doesn't include parole. And perhaps the draftsperson, I looked that up and I tried to do some independent research. It looks like parole is part of your sentence, so maybe the draftsperson said that this was, if you're on parole, you're not done your sentence. So I just want to get clarification, because it was my understanding that we were saying if you're on parole or probation, you can't vote. I just want to make that clear, that's what
Well,
that
not
was
vote,
our
but serve on a
intent.
jury. It's not vote, serve on a jury, or are you saying vote? This is just about serving on the jury.
It's about serving on a jury. Yeah, I'm sorry, what did I say?
Vote.
Oh, excuse me. Cross bills. On serving a jury, that you couldn't serve on the jury until you were done both your term of parole and probation as well as parole.
So yes, parole, you're still serving your sentence when you're on parole. So
Parole.
yes. So that's
Okay.
part of the sentence, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear, because that was my understanding what we had voted on as well. So, all right. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion on the bill? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 625, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 741, Senator Rosapep, COVID-19 Testing, Contact Tracing, and Vaccination Act of 2021. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 741 is on third reader for
Mr.
final passage. This is an emergency bill. Chair recognizes...
District 5, I think.
Yes, Senator from District 5.
I assume that's who you're looking at.
Yes.
Could
Thank
I
you,
ask
Senator.
the floor leader, actually the bill sponsor, I'm sorry, the bill sponsor to yield for a question?
Will the bill sponsor yield? Appears so. Senator may proceed.
I said floor leader out of force of habit. I apologize.
Yes, sir.
You were very gracious to come talk with me some about this bill, and as you know, I had some problems with the bill.
Yep.
But understanding, I appreciate helping me to understand a little better kind of where you were coming from, and some of the amendments I think improved the bill. But I do want to ask you a couple of questions, if I could.
Please.
One is, this bill does not require a county to set up contact tracing for the sake of setting up contact tracing or setting up testing sites if they don't need them next year, correct?
Not to my knowledge. I'll defer to the floor leader if she knows something different than I do, but nobody ever raised that, so I don't think so.
Okay, and this is providing funding to help for that as needed to help control things in the future, correct?
Yes, and if I might add just context, I mean, every health officer that I've talked to in every county that I've talked to, and I admit I haven't talked to all of them, think that contact tracing is important, they think testing is important, and they've been doing it and want to do it. But there may be some who don't want to that I don't know about.
No, it's fine. We also now have federal dollars are paying for
Yes.
the entire fiscal note, which we
Yes.
weren't sure was the case when we started this, but now we are sure.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, if I could just speak to this.
On the bill.
I'm speaking partly because I fought this bill. I argued about a number of things in this bill very hard in committee. What I want to be clear about is I am going to vote for the bill because it's going to provide funding and help for things that our health departments need. And we do want to have a plan moving forward. However, I want to say that part of my problem that I had earlier and part of what I am concerned about is we need an exit strategy at some point from COVID. It's not today. Certainly it's not next week. And we've all been looking to vaccines as the exit strategy. But we now hear, well, we got to get a majority of people vaccinated. Well, we also now know that this vaccine is not a polio vaccine that you get once or a tetanus shot that you get every few years. It may be every year. So my concern has been all throughout this that when we get things to a more manageable situation, we need to be able to extricate ourselves from the sort of the restrictions, regulations, and get back to some level of normalcy. But what this bill does is allow for there to be ways to identify problems as they arise, as opposed to some sort of draconian structure that requires us to keep doing the same things we're doing now for 2 years. I'm saying all that to explain that I will be voting for the bill, but I do have some concerns about us making sure that we do everything we can to find a reasonable exit strategy eventually from the regulations and things that we have. We've had no choice up till now, but now it's time hopefully in the coming couple of months we're going to be able to do a lot more when we have vaccine quantity available. So with that, Mr. President, I'm speaking to say I will be voting for the bill, and I thank I thank the committee for working on some of the concerns I had, and I also thank the sponsor for working with me as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And would certainly agree, especially when we get to this fall, that schools have got to get back to normal. This 2-hour-a-day thing, appreciate the difficulty, but hope by the fall we are ready to roll. Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I want to thank my colleague from the 5th District, for his words, for his thoughtfulness on this. He's exactly right. We want to exit the economic disruption, the school disruption. We don't want to exit public health. We want to stay healthy, and we want to go back to school, and we want to go back to work. This bill helps us get back to work, helps us get back to school by making sure that we have a thought-out plan integrated with the locals, with the hospitals, with the medical profession, with the federal government, that will help us protect our health as we go forward. As my colleague pointed out more eloquently than I could, this is not one and done with the vaccine. We don't know exactly how many people need to be vaccinated for us to be protected. Dr. Fauci, all of us have heard, throw out different numbers. And he throws out different numbers because he's not sure. And he's like the world's expert on this. We're going to learn as we go along. That's what we've done over the last year. This legislation is important because it is the most important problem we have in the state right now, and in the nation and the world, actually. And the president has taken leadership on this, both the president of the Senate and the president of the United States, to put this as the top of the agenda. And that's why we have these oversight meetings every Monday afternoon, to make sure we're moving in the right direction. There have been lots of problems over the last year, and we all know what they are. We all have heard from people who can't get vaccines. I just read the story in the Sun about how most of the people who are getting vaccines at the mass vaccination site in Charles County are from out of the state of Maryland. That's not great. So the opportunity to do this better is there. We need to do it better for our public health, but the senator from Carroll County said we need to do it better for our economy as well. So I urge support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 741, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 752, Senator Hayes, Baltimore City Police Officers Promotional Appointments.
Senate Bill 752 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Yeah, if the floor leader would yield.
Will the floor leader yield? Appears so. Senator may proceed.
Can you just tell me what the amended bill, what it does, and what the reasoning for it? Thank you.
Certainly. So, first of all, this is a Baltimore City bill supported by the entire delegation and the Baltimore Police Department. The purpose of the bill was to open up the pool of potential promotees. Apparently, there had been some issues with I believe, the initial 5% that were eligible for promotion, 5 people that were eligible for promotion. Within that group, some may have been disqualified, some may have had misconduct issues. And so the purpose of this is, one, to expand the pool of potential promotees, and also a secondary issue, but very important issue, is to also try to ensure diversity in those promotions.
All right. Bill's on third reader. Further discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 40 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 752, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 820, Senator West, Wills, Powers of Attorney and Advance Directives, Electronic Execution.
Senate Bill
Mr. President.
820 is on third reader for final passage. Chair recognizes the Senator from
I have
Baltimore
a
City.
question for the floor leader on this one.
Will the floor leader yield? Appears so. Senator
Certainly.
may proceed.
Senator, I'm just trying to understand what the bill does. I understand that during the pandemic, we were allowed certain accommodations with electronic correspondence. But I wonder if I choose not to take advantage of this and I actually wanted to negotiate my will or my advance directives or whatever in person, do I still have the ability to do so?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. This essentially says it provides for remote execution of wills. But you can negotiate the will all you want with your attorney in person. You're welcome to do that. If you want to do it by telephone or by virtual Zoom, you can do that as well. This merely makes it In the old days, under current Maryland statute, you have to sign the will in a small room, physically present with the witnesses, the attorneys, maybe other members of your family, perhaps a notary public, everybody crowded into a small room. During the pandemic, the governor's executive order permitted those executions to be done remotely. This validates those executions that have been done remotely after the governor's executive orders expire and continues that process into the future.
All right, and so after the governor's executive order is over, will I still have the option to go back the way it was prior to the pandemic?
Yeah, and you can do it right now. There's nothing in the governor's executive order that requires the executions to be done remotely.
Excellent, thank you so very much.
Okay, sure.
All right, any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 820, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 841, Senator Hershey, Property Tax, Community Solar Energy Generating Systems.
Senate Bill 841 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 841, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 901, Senator Hester, Public Safety, Emergency Management, Resilient Maryland Revolving Loan Fund.
Senate Bill 901 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 901, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, since we've been here, we've got two more calendars of House bills. Let's do calendar 24 first. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 226, Delegate R. Lewis, Baltimore City, Complete Streets Program Funding, Traffic, and Vehicle Monitoring Systems. House Bill 284.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Next, we've got calendar 25. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 414, Delegate D.M. Davis, Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Project Funding.
All right, the Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. All right, Senators, the desk is clear. The desk is clear. Look at that. I was about 9 minutes off. It's 1:51. It's a little wider than I like to predict, but 9 minutes I'll take. All right, so let's do committee announcements. Chair recognizes the chair of the Finance Committee.
Since several of us have to do the harassment training, we won't meet before the next session.
Okay. Chair recognizes the chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. EHE will meet at 2:30 to walk through Senate Bill 965, Kerwin 2.0, or the Part 2, and that'll be followed by voting. We'll have a hard stop at 4 so people can go to the COVID work group.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the chair of Budget and Tax.
No meetings this afternoon.
No meetings today. Chair recognizes the chair of Judicial Proceedings.
Thanks. Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet at 3 p.m. For a voting session.
3 p.m. for voting JPR. Any further announcements? Delegations, standing committees, select committees, any committees? All right. Senator from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could say the senator's name.
Permission, Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, at times, you know, we all go through some struggles in our family situations, and you know, I think at times we have the opportunity maybe to maybe take a moment of a quiet time or a prayer we can do for someone. And there's one person in this room right now that's going to be going through a tough time. And just to say the senator's name, and he's a friend in Baltimore County, Chris West. His wife is getting ready to have surgery. And I just want you to take maybe a little time today and tomorrow when she has the surgery to maybe say a small prayer for Chris and his family and his wife. just take a moment of time and just think about, maybe God will give them a peace and a calmness that they can have that come from Him. And I believe it says when 2 or 3 are gathered in His name, He is in the midst. And I believe that with all my heart. So I know more than anybody, Chris and his family would appreciate these prayers. So I pray that you'll do that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator, and appreciate the observation. And certainly in the Senate family, when one's hurting, all's hurting. So we are there in spirit and making sure that whatever we can do. All right, other announcements? No, nothing? All right,
Mr. President.
Yes, Chair recognizes Senator Baltimore County delegation.
Baltimore County delegation, 9 a.m. tomorrow for those who can make it. I hope I'll get a quorum at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, no more delegations. I'm trying to waste 5 minutes so that I can be right on. Just kidding. All right. There's. Let's do a quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 47 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Mr. President, will the floor be secure if people want to leave their computers?
We will secure the chamber. Yes.
Okay. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned to the next legislative day, Monday, March 22nd at 7 p.m.
7 p.m. Without objection, so ordered. Stay safe, everyone.